information you're going to be handling potentially?
Oh yeah, that's a small company too, so I think they got kind of a family vibe. So I think they're more than anything trying to make sure somebody's a good fit personality wise and stuff. I've already done the tech interviews, so
What the fuck? Oh, God, I'm so testy today. I need to actually. I need to. Let's see. We're still waiting on Joe, right?
yeah, Sophie too. Sophie's running late though.
I'm gonna push this live. If you have something to do, I need you to go do it right now because then I gotta do something quick too.
I'm good for now. So.
Oh, I got you. You said you might have to pee.
Oh yeah, no, I just did before I jumped on. That's what I was away for a sec.
All right, we're live. I'm gonna mute for a minute. I just want to go double check something quick. I'll be back.
All right. Hello, Internet. Nice to see you again. That's not good. Hello.
No way. Oh, that's weird. Oh, weird. The way his microphone looked, I thought his camera was sideways.
Yeah.
We have no Sophie yet.
Not yet. Cece just posted a minute ago that she was running late. That
Cece's
Sophie
coming?
was No, that Sophie was running late. She was
Ah,
running
okay.
like 10 minutes late.
Got it. I haven't shipped out anything yet, so I will get you those stickers out.
Oh, I'm not in
Joe,
any
just a
hurry
heads up,
for
we
them.
are live.
Yeah, I figured as much. I gotta sort through all those t-shirts.
I just went after seeing your guys' laptops. It's like, oh shit, I need that sticker with the face and the slime for my laptop.
I don't know if anybody else has those. I think I just took them.
Oh yeah. I thought I saw another one over there. Maybe on Schnars.
Oh, maybe. Maybe they just grabbed while we're sorry. My life is gonna be beautiful.
You got me beat on decorations this year, Joe. I haven't
We
started yet.
Leslie likes to wait till the first, but I convinced her that other people in our neighborhood had put stuff up. So we're gonna be away for Thanksgiving, so we're putting up our Christmas ones like mid-November.
Nice.
What am I looking for here? Ride the tire.
Yeah, Colleen started asking me like yesterday when we're gonna start doing this shit, but I still have to clean the garage out so we have room to work.
It's we haven't even gotten everything up. It's just been shitty rain every weekend. So I've done what I can like in between. But we have some other stuff that we need to like put out.
What the
It's
fuck?
kind of hard to get in the mood when it's 90 fucking degrees.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Bloody Good Horror. Can you guys hear this?
Yes, sir.
Little beer guts.
The beer guts intro? No.
Let's
You got it?
see.
You can hear it.
Okay, I did get it. Yeah. What time is it right now? Why can't I see that on my computer? That's really weird.
8:05.
Sophie said she was gonna be on at 8:15, but we can start without her. So maybe we
Yeah.
should.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
I have a bunch of emails, so if we go short, we're covered. Let's say I want to talk about Creepshow.
Yeah.
Was there anything
I
else
seen
going
it.
on?
Talk about the 5K quickly.
Yeah, that's the ticket. Do you guys like my little spooky orange light over my shoulder? Or
Yes.
under my shoulder?
It's spooky.
It's okay.
That's not very nice.
It's all right, I guess.
It's fine. What
Oh.
else? Anything? Any other topics of choice? So we'll do the run first. I guess that's it. Oh,
Fred
and so
Durst is posting updates from the studio.
we should talk to Sophie about the idea we were talking about, Joe, with tweet with BGH and Slack and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. I don't think Shnar's ever responded to that thread, so I wasn't sure.
No. He'll do that.
One more thing, and then we start. All right, we're gonna start, okay? I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes. You idiot. I said fire across her nose, not up it.
Major asshole, sir.
Reporting for duty. How many assholes we got in the ship anyway? I love that we're just doing. I love that we're just doing the bid in reverse.
Oh God, I'm surrounded by assholes.
There are like few movies that I can or will quote more, and like that movie's time is so gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that only a certain audience.
It's a dying art,
Although we
unfortunately.
have an intern that works over this. He's worked the last couple of summers, and we just got to the point where instead of not making the references, we make him Google them. So we spent half the day on YouTube explaining shit to him. The last one was the puffy shirt episode of Seinfeld.
Ugh. I don't want to be a pirate.
Exactly.
The thing I love about that show is like every time I see like one of those episodes, I realize that it's also like 3 other episodes that I thought were separate.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like
saw you talking about that on Slack the other day.
Yeah, like the Festivus one, when I went back and watched that, like that's the one where Kramer goes on strike.
Yeah,
That's the one
every
where
show-
Elaine is trying to get the sub.
Every show has at least like an A, B, and C plot, and then sometimes
Yeah.
D. Like there's a ton of shit going on.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, let's record.
Let's do this.
Spooky season, guys. Let's do it. The public demands this. I'm ready. When you guys want to mute?
Welcome to Bloody Good Horror.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Tigers Are Not Afraid, a Mexican horror film written and directed by Issa Lopez. Joining me tonight, first up from Chicago, Illinois, he's the king of beef jerky here at Bloody Good Horror, as he's known around these parts. Please welcome Joe.
I have lost weight. Thank you for noticing, Eric. I appreciate that very much.
You know, Joe, the whole beef jerky saga has really been contained to Slack, so I don't know if just like casual show listeners are aware of the drama happening in your life right now.
The people sitting around me at my office are also well aware.
Next up, joining me tonight from Indiana, land of corn, please welcome Casey.
Hello.
Sophie of New Class fame will also be joining us tonight, but she's running a little bit late, so if you suddenly hear a lady voice in a few minutes, that's why.
As the millennials do, they can't be on time for anything.
That's true.
Out playing with their fidget spinners and pop sockets and jelly beans and what else?
They're what?
Eating avocado toast.
They're what now? They're what sockets? Pop sockets, is that what you said?
Pop sockets, is that the things they got on the back of their phones? The little pop-out things that they hold their phones with.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Alright, you say so.
I'll take your word for it.
It helps you hold your phone, Joe.
Yes. You know what else helps when I hold my phone? My hands.
They're very useful. You can also prop your phone up.
Yeah,
Yes.
hands are very useful.
It's the only thing separating us from the animals, Eric. You start putting pop sockets on, next thing you know, pigs can use your phone. This is how the uprising begins.
Okay. All right. Anyway, Joe. Speaking of millennials, right? They like to run. They're very in shape, millennials. They're very body conscious, I think.
Mm-hmm. Conscious of my body.
Are they? You think millennials are aware of what's going on with your body?
I think so. Dad bods, that's a thing that the millennials are into. They're like, oh, hey, look at this guy. Like, look at him and his dad bod.
I feel like that's a thing, and like until it becomes reality.
Yeah, it's
It's funny to joke
probably-
about
yeah.
it on the internet and like make dads feel good, and until it's like facing you stark in the night, and then I just feel like it's like, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Trust me,
yeah,
I have one. It's not for me.
But and like I feel like they think like Brad Pitt has a dad body. Like that's like their definition. Like
Yeah.
no, it's you're fat, you're tired. Like that's a dad bod. Like if you want to see a real dad bod,
Like-
you
Nothing's really where it used to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
everything's stained with tears. Like
He groans when he stands up.
yeah.
So anyway, Joe, us dads here, we like to run to ward off the sands of time.
It's how I've lost my weight that you were noticing before, Eric.
Yeah.
And for those of you who want to run with us, we have a little thing called the second annual Bloody Good Horror Virtual 5K. For those of you who weren't around last year, we did this, and pretty much what the idea is, the weekend of October 19th, so that's Saturday and Sunday, the 19th and 20th, you go out, you run a 5K, you send us a screenshot of your app or whatever you're using to track your run. Send it to bloodygoodhorror@gmail.com. We'll track your results and post up your pictures and all that fun. We don't post anyone's time or anything, so don't feel self-conscious. But then we'll send you out some swag. One caveat there is because of the issues we had last year, we're only sending out stuff to folks in the the continental U.S. But for folks outside the U.S., obviously, we love for you to partake, and we'll try and get you some like digital, maybe some like back episodes or something. We'll figure something out. But
Yeah,
it was a big success last year, so we're really excited for this year. We've kind of ignored it a bit just with everything going on with the Spooktacular, but now that that's out of the way, we're going full force. So we're just about, I want to say 3 weeks away. So I'm really looking forward to it. You can walk, you can run, do whatever you want. There's no like sort of pressure to have your personal record or anything.
Yeah.
It's really just about like having fun and
I'm
kind of
gonna
being a community.
I'm gonna walk it again, and I'll be honest. If the weather's not good, I'm literally might go like watch Stranger Things at the gym on the treadmill.
Yeah, I mean, you do it on the treadmill, whatever you want to do. If you treadmill, just take a snap of the treadmill screen when you're done.
Oh.
Whatever you need to do to get us the results. There's no real pressure.
And we don't have any way of checking it, so you could easily cheat.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're gonna do, like, I don't know how sad your life is if you're cheating on the Bloody Good Horror virtual 5K, but you know,
Right.
if that makes you feel good about yourself, and
That's
you
it.
know, have fun rotting in hell. you
That's a good
sack of
point.
shit.
And we should like put a double exclamation point on the virtual part because we actually had some people say like, "Oh, I didn't really get it last year, but I wanted to do it, so they're going to do it this year." We're hearing from a lot of people who are going to walk, a lot of people who are like, "I literally never run, but I want to do this," or "I'm doing a couch to 5K." So I think it's already shaping up to be another cool little community event. So
Yeah, I'm really excited for it, so I hope we have a good turnout again.
exciting. Do we have a landing page for that information yet?
We do. If you go to bloodygoodhorror.com, it should still be at the top. And you know, we have details, pretty much what I just rambled off on the show. But
Yeah.
yeah, and if you're on Facebook, there's an event page too. So
Very cool.
all kinds of fun.
Joe,
Yeah.
have you heard of Creepshow?
I'm familiar. I believe that was a show in the late 90s, which was a Cosby family spinoff, if I remember correctly.
Wow, it could have been. That could be
Yeah.
a modern day spinoff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, imagine like a satire of the Cosbys made by like Key and
Yeah.
Peele called Creepshow.
It was made by that Radiohead guy, Tom Yorn, I believe.
Yes, wow.
It was
okay,
like
we're off
a
the rails.
Cosby.
Anyway. There's a new anthology series on Shudder, and I watched the first episode last night. And I wanted to talk about it. So, did you
Yeah.
watch some of it today, right, Joe?
Yeah, I caught the first story, and I didn't get to the second. But yeah, it was a thing that's there.
What'd you think?
I saw it too.
I thought the story I watched, I thought it was okay. I thought the effects were pretty cool. I mean, we were kind of talking about this on Slack. My expectations of Shudder based on that like Ranger movie we watched are really low. So
I don't
like
think
anything
they-
that's better than that is
We
pretty
did
stellar.
point out I don't think they made that.
Yeah. But you know, it's a Shudder exclusive. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun enough. It kind of, and you mentioned this a lot, I'm sure you'll get into it, but it doesn't really have the charm,
Yeah.
especially of like the intro that
There's
the movies did.
There's no vibe, right? Like that's kind of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
beef with it. Casey, what'd you think?
I agree with that. There's no the wraparound's a little weak. I thought the stories themselves though were pretty solid. The first one was definitely not as strong as the second half of it. The second half I thought was really really good. I was pretty
Oh,
surprised.
see,
First half felt like a good throwback.
I actually thought the second story was way stronger directed anyway. So
Oh, yeah.
the first one is a Stephen King story. It's in Night Shift, I think, because
Yeah.
I've actually read it, and Night Shift's like the only book of his that I've read. And the book version, I get to be this person now, Joe. The book version is really good.
Interesting.
But it's a lot about they didn't cut a lot out, but it's all about anticipation. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
they try to kind of get at that in the thing with them going to the house to see the dad, and it's a lot about like teasing out I don't know. It's about like tension in the way that King builds it up by just like really building up
Yeah.
to like an incident. But I thought this was fine. Did you guys catch the dude from Breaking Bad? Gus was in it.
I don't know.
Yes.
Do you watch Breaking Bad, Joe?
No.
What?
I watched the first 2 seasons, I think,
Wow.
and lost interest.
Holy!
Oh, we've had this conversation.
Wow, that
Yeah.
blows my mind. Anyway,
It was the guy that ran the El Pollo Loco or
Yeah.
something
Oh,
like that.
okay. So I did watch a couple seasons of
Oh,
Better
okay.
Call Saul, and I know who you're talking about.
I
now.
mean, so
Yeah.
this is my thing, like, and I'm admittedly probably like too close to Creepshow. Like, I will often call Creepshow my favorite horror film. It has a
Yeah.
lot of nostalgia value for me. I also listen to the soundtrack a lot, and like, so the John Harrison did that original soundtrack, so it's got that like a really distinct signature like 80s synth sound. Every segment literally had like a riff that was memorable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah,
it's
great.
part of what gave it that vibe. Also, the wraparound story, the use of colored light, which is like admittedly like a very 80s thing, but um, I just felt like the Creepshow trappings were done really cheaply. It's like Joe, you said like this is what blew my mind. There's no intro to this show. There's no like
Yeah.
give me 90 seconds or 60 seconds or anything of like spooky music with some imagery and some lighting and like literally it's just like the lazy like it looks like somebody made comic book pages in Flash or something and they just like
Yeah.
pan across it, show a couple panels, and they go right into the first story. And like
Yeah,
they
and
show the
it's
creeper's face, and he
yeah.
does nothing, and it's shot really weird. Like it just has that cheap like digital video look to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of happens quickly too, to the point where like I didn't realize I was supposed to be reading like the comic text, and that wasn't just like filler.
It's
And
very.
yeah,
I just thought it was weird. I just feel like you're gonna call a creep show. That's the one thing you need to do is give me the vibe.
Yeah.
Like I almost could because the stories are fine, but I'm actually not a big anthology fan at the end of the day because I feel like they're just kind of like trifles, right? They're like short little stories. You can't really develop anything, and then you move on. And it's like that. You know why? Like the one of the best anthology shows of all time, Joe, was Tales from the Dark Side from the '80s. Cheap as hell, but they were like 17-minute stories.
yeah,
Like it was a quick little setup and then like shocker ending, and that was out. And it also had one of the greatest intros of all time, like with the best music,
Yeah.
like the creepy voiceover, and the guy's like, "It's the dark, the dark side," and he's like, "They're in the woods."
yeah. I
I was a
also
little
feel like
disappointed.
we kind of talked about this over Slack too, but like you. In a anthology movie, you have like 4 or 5 segments. So if you have one that's not that strong and the rest are, like it kind of saves the movie. Whereas with this, like if that first segment isn't great, the show's like 45 minutes. So like you're out like 25
I think
minutes.
they're better
And
off, honestly, doing one story per episode and giving a little
yeah,
more room,
I'd agree.
a little
Yeah.
more room to breathe. I mean, like I also think Creepshow is a movie. Everything was like I hate anthologies where there's like 6 directors because
Yeah.
everything looks and feels different and there's no cohesiveness to it whatsoever. It's what gives Creepshow a leg up, and that Romero did it. And so every one of those things is lit similarly. It's shot similarly. The music is similar, like and obviously like
Similar vibe.
as a series, you can't replicate that every week through the whole run. But I think they could have done a lot more. It just feels like a lazy application of the branding.
I
You know,
think they could have done a lot more, but like the wraparound and the creep show trappings didn't bother me as much. They did feel cheap, but for me, I'm more about the stories when you get into the anthologies. I like the little stories, and I thought those were pretty solid. The first one felt like an homage back to the old ones, and it definitely felt like a Stephen King story. The second half of it, I was really impressed with it. I really enjoyed and thought it was fun. And just seeing some of the cast that you see showing up there too, that the fact that they got like Adrienne Barbeau, busted her out for that first one, and Tobin Bell, stuff like that, Giancarlo.
Yeah,
The second one had the little girl was Judith Grimes from Walking Dead.
I thought the directing in the first one was not great, but it's kind of made up for by that cast, obviously. But the camera work in the second one was just so much fun with the way the camera would pan around the dollhouse and up and down between the floors and stuff. Like
Yeah.
that was almost a harder task because there's less action. Like that's all just artistry of the way you're framing the dollhouse and stuff. And I thought that was cool. But
Yeah, I
don't
see
know.
it because that one was written by the person that did the Bird Box, I believe, and I
Interesting.
see a lot of people on our Slack are talking about it. Made them think of Hereditary, the way it was shot.
Yeah.
So
Well, we'll see.
it's
I don't know.
definitely worth going to check that second half out, Joe.
yeah, I will. I just didn't have time today.
I think of like The Last Drive-In. Like the intro to The Last Drive-In manages to be modern while also hitting on those nostalgia notes. And like when that intro's over, you're just like you're pumped for some Joe Bob. And I just don't get why they didn't do that here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird.
Whatever. Hey Joe. You know
Yeah,
what
man, what's up?
You know what I do when I'm disappointed in life?
Drink.
I drink.
That's right, you do.
Let us know what we're drinking this week.
Beer guts.
Mark. Yeah, Tigers Aren't Afraid is the name of this movie, if I remember correctly. A lot of references to tigers, which, when you think Mexico, you think tigers. So I picked a beer from the fine folks at Great Lakes Brewing. They're out in Cleveland, Ohio, and this beer is their Rye of the Tiger. which is a rye IPA. I don't think, I mean, I've obviously done a lot of IPAs. I don't think I've done a lot of rye IPAs. Pretty much, as you might expect, it's an IPA, but in the brewing process, they actually use rye, which gives it like a little bit more spiciness, which is very nice, especially this time of year where it's getting a little chilly out. Where you're not ready to jump full into like stouts in winter and all that magic, but you want to get a little autumn up in your grill. This one I enjoy a great deal. It really it has like a good amount of that spiciness with still kind of giving some of that hot bite at the end. So very, very like clean, crisp taste to it, but still has like a lot of flavor. So I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorites. Comes in at 7.5% alcohol, so it's a little bit up there, a
Ooh.
little higher than your average beer.
That'll get you where you're going, as they like to
Yeah,
say.
it'll warm you up in
Yeah.
these months as the temperature drop. So yeah, Great Lakes Brewing, they distribute pretty far throughout the U.S. I'm sure outside too, up in Canada potentially, but you can find this one. I know on the East Coast we used to get it too, so you should be able to find this one and their other stuff. Pretty big brewery. And yeah, check them out. GreatLakesBrewing.com is their website, and enjoy.
Great, Joe. I will.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. All right, guys. It's time. Let's take a quick break and review Tigers Are Not Afraid.
This is it, Jennifer. There's big breaking TV. Fuck the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
I 100% just said that title, and then my brain went, wait, was that right?
I did the same thing when I was doing the beer.
It feels like one of those ones that that I personally would screw up pretty easily.
I'm still not sure.
Tigers Are Not Afraid. Guys, this is a Mexican horror film written and directed by Issa Lopez. So I don't know that she's widely known to American audiences, but I was kind of doing a little reading on her tonight, and it turns out she's just like a huge filmmaker in Mexico and has a bunch of the top grossing Mexican films like in their box office. So she made this movie in 2017. It blew up the festival circuit. This led to her meeting Del Toro, who's actually producing her next movie, which is currently called Untitled Werewolf Western. So that's pretty exciting. But obviously, like, Del Toro came from Mexico. He's a huge champion of like Mexican filmmakers, and so he's kind of bringing her here now and getting her some work. So it's pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to that. But this one, called Tigers Are Not Afraid, it's on our radar because it's now on Shudder, streaming exclusively. This is the first time it's been available wide. And Joe, I'm going to tell you what this movie's about.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were about to call on me to synopsize, and I got terrified. I was about to hang up.
I definitely remember what this movie's about. This movie is about the consequences of the Mexican drug war. Classic horror storyline, Joe.
Yep, as we've seen 100 times before.
It is about a bunch of kids, some of them orphans, some of them, let's say, newly orphaned, as we open up on the movie, and they are basically just like trying to survive in this like very bad situation, right? Where like the police are corrupt, drug dealers rule everything, violence is a part of everyday life. We kind of see this in the beginning with people just kind of getting shot right and left, and it's just a kind of a fact of life. One of our main characters kind of loses her parents, and she falls in with this other group of kids that we've been seeing. Do they call themselves like the Tigers, or is there more of a name than that?
Oh shoot, I forget what that name was, but I don't think it was just Tigers.
Is it more than that? I mean, they've basically adopted the tiger as like their mascot, with the theme of like the tiger is sort of a predator. The apex predator isn't afraid of anybody else, and they've kind of latched onto this iconography as something to kind of make themselves feel safe in this world that isn't very safe. Meanwhile, there's this whole kind of thread going on with like what happened to this girl's mom, these drug guys who were involved in her disappearance, and these kids kind of want to take revenge. And when they do get a little bit of revenge, that then causes like, you know, bad stuff to happen, Joe, because the drug people don't like when you get revenge. And so a lot of the movie is kind of them hiding from them, but also trying to get revenge. This main character is sort of seeing visions of her mother, who is kind of spooky, scary, Joe, as Tracy Morgan would say, but also like trying to kind of guide her, we kind of learn. And tigers. Lots of tigers everywhere.
A lot of tiger references.
Yeah, and it's just them
Indeed.
sort of trying to survive out there, Joe.
As you do.
Before we jump in here, let's add Sophie.
Yay!
I'm so nervous.
Sophie, let's see if she's there.
I did think about looking up today to find out what tigers are actually afraid of, and then I didn't do that.
I mean, it's got to be poachers, right, Joe?
Well, you think they're aware of poachers?
Yeah, it's fair.
Like, aren't like elephants are scared of mice? That's the whole idea, which probably isn't a real thing. What are tigers afraid of?
Sophie, quick.
They're not afraid of anything.
Tigers are naturally afraid of fire. There you
There
go.
you go.
Who isn't?
I mean,
who isn't?
isn't everything afraid of fire? Like,
You know who isn't, Joe? The volcano demon thing in Moana. Not afraid
that's
of
true.
fire.
Yeah, well, a fan of fire, but
Right.
I'm sure she's afraid of other things.
Actively made out of fire, so probably not afraid of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
volcano
It'd
face.
be really rough to be afraid of what you're made of.
Mm.
Oh, that's deep. Sophie, welcome to the show.
Hey guys.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Are you
Yeah,
re-
of
are you
course.
are you ready to jump in here? We're ready to do it. What did you think of
Oh, yeah.
Tigers Are Not Afraid?
Oh shit. So I love this movie. I actually got to see this at Panic Fest in Kansas City 2 years ago. So I'm very excited that it's finally widely available because listeners of the show and people who are on the show probably know that I've been talking about it nonstop and trying to get everyone to watch it. So,
Did you
Sorry
get a
about
chance?
that.
Did you get a chance to watch it again?
yes, I watched it with my mom on
Oh,
Monday.
Was there anything that
Um,
stood out to you, like on a second watch? Just before we kind of jump in here.
Yes. So did you all give your thoughts about it already?
nope.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, we'll
So-
circle back to that.
Yes. Slight spoilers for what other people may or may not have thought. I think a thing that I had an issue with in the beginning is I didn't feel like the spooky elements of this movie fit as well as I did the second time. I mean, I loved it the first time and I didn't really have a problem with it, but they seemed a lot more woven into the story on a second watch.
Okay, Joe, what'd you think?
Oh God, now I feel like I missed a lot of things. I want to preface my thoughts with it's October 2nd. I'm all aboard with spooky season. I want to see like witches and pumpkins and lattes and all that sort of stuff. And the first movie we watch is like set in Mexico where it's hot and it's a bunch of little kids running around and they haven't showered in God knows how long. Like it's a whole thing. So I had a lot of trouble getting into this to begin with. That being said, I appreciate everything about it. I just didn't find myself really caring about the story so much of this kid specifically. I really enjoyed like kind of the creature effects and like the stuff going on there and like the creepy parts. I really wanted more of that. Eric, you had mentioned over email, and I totally agree. Like we get to a part later where the whole thing is set up like a fairy tale, right? Like I think that's even how they describe it on IMDb. And later on, like things get a little more I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, ungrounded. There's a lot more like fantasy effects that are happening, and like that's when I really started to enjoy it. I had a lot of trouble getting into a lot of the kind of day-to-day stuff that they showed the kids doing, and I wanted to see more of like the creepy aspects. That being said, like I thought it was beautifully shot. Like it's an interesting story. Like I have no like big complaints about it. It just didn't really hit for me.
Yeah, it didn't hit different. Is what
I
you're
think
saying.
the comment about time of year is a really valid one too, because like we all wait all year for October, and I can see
Yeah.
this movie not hitting the same in October when all you want is like very spooky.
Doesn't really
I am
get you in
intrigued
the
by this
mood.
pumpkin latte thing. Like, do you think we could have a pumpkin latte horror movie of some kind?
I would love to. Like it's the pumpkin spice latte comes alive and starts like attacking people. I don't know. There's got to be something out there.
I like it. Or like a barista.
Or just like basic white bitches all get possessed by like
Or-
tainted.
No, I was
Yeah,
gonna
so-
say like
lattes?
I was gonna say
A barista's poisoning them, right? Like,
an aggrieved
Mhm.
barista who's just sick of it all just goes on a rampage.
yeah.
And all
yeah,
you see of the
exactly.
killer throughout the movie is her Ugg boots.
or
All
it's
right,
like
Hollywood, call us up. We have this movie. It's pitched and ready to
She
go.
she
what's
takes she takes
that
she takes like the foam of the pumpkin spice and like paints it under her eyes as like war paint before she goes
yeah,
off.
this is good. Like, what's that Cronenberg movie we watched where like everybody got super horny in that apartment building? Was that Cronenberg? Was that
Tremor. Nope, not
No,
Tremor.
no,
Oh,
isn't that
Shivers, right?
isn't that
Yeah.
isn't that not rabid, but the
Ra-
shivers? Was that what's called?
Shivers?
Yep.
Maybe, yeah. Like it could be that, but like the what infects these people is the pumpkin spice latte, and it's just like a bunch of college girls at SUNY Albany like going crazy. That's a
Uh,
local reference.
Yeah, to places we don't live anymore. Hey Casey, what'd you think?
So Joe's got valid points as far as the atmosphere and being able to get into this movie and stuff. It's one you definitely have to be right in the correct mind space for. I hadn't fired up on like a lazy Sunday afternoon where didn't have much going on. I was kind of bored doing what I was doing, so getting into something new, I got kind of sucked into this really quick and was able to connect with that story. There's more than anything, this movie, by you get to the end of it, the more thing that hits me out more than anything is this movie is fucking bleak and it's sad. And just getting into these kids' stories and what's going on with these cartels and everything. Our main girl, Estrella, and like the story with her mom and stuff really connected to me.
I believe
So
it's
as we start to see
I believe it's Estrella,
Estrella, I'm sorry, I'm from Indiana.
Quesadilla.
They but like later on once the spooky stuff starts happening and everything, it really I was gotten sucked into Estrella's story enough when what stuff was going on with her mom that once that happened it's like, oh boy, what's going to happen. So for me, I thought it was a really good story and I really liked the fantasy aspects and everything of it. While it wasn't super spooky, I did like the spooky aspects of it, and you start getting into some of the ghost tales and stuff here and it changes it up. It's not your typical type of ghost story. Eric, you've complained a lot in the past, ghost stories, they show up and want to rearrange your living room, move the pictures or something like that. It's not that type of ghost story, which I like.
Yeah, it's
So-
definitely not a creaky door creaky door horror movie, which is
Yeah.
good for sure.
So
Yeah, I mean,
overall, I like this a lot.
that's sort of backing into kind of one of my big like positives on this, Casey, is just that like this is very different. I mean, this is like definitely part of this new wave that we're seeing of like very socially conscious, politically aware, where the social aspects are to the forefront, right? And like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk about this kind of stuff lately with people like Jordan Peele, obviously like out there making movies like this, and or like I think a lot of people like to be like, well, horror's always been political, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but at least in my experience, there's never been this many movies where those themes were so upfront. It's a good thing. I just think that like you look at right like Night of the Living Dead is thought of as like a famously political film, and Romero would have told you like it wasn't really until we cast a black lead actor, and then I think he was smart enough to understand like the optics and how that changed things in the film, right? Like even Dawn of the Dead, another one. Like I mean, not to just talk about Romero movies, but like that's one where like really it's the subtext is there, right? This is text. This is a movie about, violence and like cartel violence and how it basically affects everyday life in Mexico. It's that above all else, like including being a horror movie. Where it gets a lot of like comparison to early Del Toro is that it's also mixing these like dark fantasy elements, and that stuff is really neat. It's a very interesting balance of that stuff. Like I said, it's a lot more real world horror than I think I was prepared for, but it's shot like a fantasy movie in like a crumbled down city, and that's my favorite part of it. Like this director has this really uncanny way of framing scenes shot in places that if you were there in real life you'd like recoil in horror at like how dirty everything looks, and yet she makes it look like just this beautiful fantasy place, right? And that's kind of what the movie's about, is about how children can kind of retain magic and fantasy even in the most bleak of circumstances. That I think is its strength. I'm really glad movies like that exist. I think I'm probably more on the Joe side, that I could have used more fantasy and more horror. The fantasy and the horror stuff, I don't know. Sophie's point is interesting about seeing it a second time and feeling like the horror stuff was more woven in. My experience this time around was like anytime the creepy mom would show up, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's a thing, like creepy mom, because she kind of just like shows up at a few points to kind of guide the main character in the right direction. So yeah, overall, I mean, there's more to get into, but like overall, I think this is a really neat thing, and there's definitely a lot of people that this movie would be right up their alley, especially if you love this kind of like socially conscious horror film. I think Joe's point about time of year was probably also a big one for me, but I have trouble with things this unendingly bleak nowadays. Um, but I have this like favorite moment that we'll talk about in a little bit, and I think like if there was more of that stuff, I think this would have been a lot higher for me.
Yeah, I think this movie, rightly so, gets compared to older Guillermo del Toro movies. To me, it's the most reminiscent of Devil's Backbone, which I know is a movie that some people love and some people just, it doesn't land for them at all. Um, and I would say that Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth, they do a lot of those things that you're talking about, right, Eric? Where they're talking very specifically about this. Those are period pieces, but you're still sort of addressing the politics and optics of violence and specifically the way that it's impacting a society and the way it's, and we're seeing all that through a child.
Right.
And so one of the things that I love the most about this movie that I think you could say about both of those things, and I think John brought up a little bit over email, is just that by seeing these events unfold through the eyes of kids, we sort of, the fairy tale aspect really helps to sort of demonstrate that even though they're living in this horrible, just really devastating situation, they can't, they're kids and they can't fully grasp what's happening. And the only way they can really understand what's going on is within the context of things that are magical and not real, because of course it's too fantastical to try to imagine when you're that young, which
Right.
I think is really cool. I was reminded when I was rewatching this movie that there's a really awesome article that came out after Crimson Peak that Tasha Robinson, who's a film reviewer who I really like and respect, she wrote an article for Gizmodo that's called "The Theme That Ties All of Guillermo del Toro's Movies Together." And it's sort of talking about using ghosts to symbolize things like grief and our past and how we have to confront those things in order to move on. And what she really hones in on at the beginning, which I think is a really good mindset. If you've not watched this movie yet, it might be helpful to look at it as less of a ghost story, but a story that has ghosts in it. Like, I think that this is for sure not like a straight horror movie. And I think that is maybe a helpful thing to know going in, because I could see how, especially if you've heard a lot of good stuff about this but don't really know anything about it, I could see how you'd watch it and feel like, oh, this is not at all what I was expecting. And the narrative is horribly gutting as well.
Yeah.
So you're like not getting the scares you thought, and it's just going to break your heart repeatedly.
I mean, right out of the gate, right? And I think like
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting the more I think about it, the way that it's framed from the child's view. And I think that there's actually, that's a little deeper than just the surface plot stuff. Like the way that we see right out of the gate, like this girl's mom disappears, and we don't really see what happened, but we just see like she goes home, and she's just like hanging out, and like then it's like nighttime and nobody's there, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then the next day I think I was just like not putting it together. I was like, oh my god, like, and then she was like calling her mom and leaving a message. I think this happened, right? That she was saying she was hungry or something. And I'm like,
yeah,
dude.
There was, I think I actually messaged you and John, Eric, that like I thought there was some sort of event where like all the adults had disappeared in this universe, and then I started to realize like, oh,
no,
this is what happened.
See, your
like,
thing would be less depressing because that would just be like a fantasy movie thing.
yeah, well, I think that's what I thought I was getting into, and then I realized like, oh no, this is still fairly grounded. There's just this stuff that kind of happens every once in a while. Yeah, I mean that. The way they did that is almost more heartbreaking than if you just saw the mom get shot and know that like she's gone, because like I don't know, as a father, I start thinking about like my own daughter like being in a house by herself, like trying to figure out what to do when nobody comes home. Like it's
like,
awful.
Like Sophie's saying, right? Like at that age, you can't even comprehend, and so she just kind of wanders off, and like she finds these. I'm trying to remember. Like I think she kind of knew that they were there. Sure, there was they steal stuff from the house.
Yeah, the one kid.
Yeah, Shine tries to break into her house and take stuff.
Yeah, do you want to talk about your hatred for the gang, the ringleader, Joe?
I mean, he's just.
I would love Joe to talk about it so that I can. Go ahead, Joe.
I mean, I get it. I get why he's angry. I get why they're together. Like, they need to stay together. But, like, after a while, I'm just like, Shine, you're a dick. Like,
No,
I'm going off
he's
on
a
my own.
prick,
Like,
but the way I looked at it was like these kids have to be really sharp edged in order to even survive in this like world, and so I kind of looked at it
Absolutely,
that
like-
way, like, and they also kind of they do obviously need each other, right? Like for protection in a lot of ways. He is
yeah, I mean,
a- he
He's
is a-
obviously like adopted, like he is, whether it was given to him or not, like he has obviously assumed responsibility
Right.
for all of the other kids. So
Absolutely. I mean, my
I-
dislike of him is more
Joe,
sarcasm.
Joe,
but,
think
like,
of how cranky you get, and you're an adult, and you only have 2 kids.
Look, I have dealt with all of you over 2 different events at this point and not snapped once. So I say Shine.
Joe, you
there was this one time in Chicago where I bought you a drink, and when I handed it to you, you said, "Go fuck yourself."
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, it was like the beginning of the night, and I was like, Joe might have to drive later, and I know he has to like probably be in charge of stuff, so I'm gonna buy him a gin and tonic early because I know Cece and Kyle aren't here. And I like hand you a gin and tonic, and you were just like, "Fuck you, Sophie," and I was like,
No,
"All right, Joe,
there's
enjoy
no
your drink."
way I was serious about that. Like, absolutely not. There's no way someone would buy me a drink and say, "Go fuck yourself." Like, I'm trying to piece together how this happened, but there's no way I would.
I was gonna say you snap with your eyes.
I mean, at John, yeah, because I mean,
But yeah, the kid's a prick, but obviously, like, there's reasons for that.
yeah,
Now,
There are very clear reasons why he's an ass.
but I find the group dynamic kind of like kind of adorable, and like, I mean, it's depressing, but like, I think it's sweet, I guess is more the word. Like the way
Yeah.
that they look out for each other. Everybody kind of has their little roles for child characters. They're, they have their little quirks. They're fairly well drawn. And I really love the way the director kind of hammers home the tiger iconography. Like, it's not, there's a theme, right? Like, there's a real thing that she really sticks to, and it kind of comes to a nice like fruition in the final scene when this, spoiler alert, the plush tiger becomes sentient somehow, which is off. Like, that whole effect is really cool. It's a creepy, weird thing. Again, it's like, I loved that so much. I was like, oh, I wish there was like a little more of this in this movie. But I thought that was really cool. But again, like she does a great job of really hammering home the tiger thing, and I really loved the design on like the spray paint tags with the tiger on them. Like, that stuff was really cool.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, agreed. And I think, yeah, we kind of talked about this over email, like that. I really enjoyed those parts, and I think that's kind of what I wanted more.
Although, don't write your names like on your rooftop home. Like, you
That's
don't
true.
want people to know where it is, right? Like,
Yeah, but again, I mean, you're dealing with, like, I don't know how old these kids
Yeah.
really are, but
yeah,
like,
that's fair.
I'm sure that would be like the first thing I would write.
I
when
don't know,
was
Joe.
there.
They were that one scene. They were eating like kings up there with their
Yeah.
beans and their
And
You should-
snacks and
I mean, if you're in that situation, you should at least write your names and shit on like the next building over to throw them off, right?
Right.
like a block away.
Yeah.
I like that. These kids
Well,
stole it.
one of the things that I love the most about this movie, and I don't think I really caught it the first time, so I don't know if you all found it as effective as I did, but I think this movie uses B-roll in a super incredible way. I know Eric talked about sort of just the way that they shoot the setting of this movie. A lot of it just takes place in this like abandoned, very poor neighborhood where houses are all kind of stacked on top of each other, and there's no one around anymore. And that stuff's cool, but I also love that in almost every sequence of B-roll shots, we're just getting these images of things that are very childish, but they're in the very bleak setting. So we can't, even during the B-roll, we can't forget who our characters are and what they're dealing with. So there's a lot of settings or scenes where we have like weird amalgamations of toys that have been kind of put together and sat on top of a building, or like
Yeah.
very childish graffiti. I thought that was so deftly done, because it's not something that sticks out, but it forces you to really sit in the darkness of this story for the entire movie. It doesn't ever give you a break, even when they're just showing the surroundings that they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think some of that B-roll is also what led me to believe that like we were dealing with something where like all the adults in Mexico had disappeared. Like, because it feels like a bomb had gone off and like
but-
these kids
Yeah.
are the only one
Oh,
left.
yeah.
Like,
But,
but
like-
I mean, obviously you piece it together. Like, no, this is just a product of the drug war going on.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
would probably be their experience that like people don't want to get near them. Like they're just like
Yeah.
little orphan kids.
Oh,
You want
yeah.
to take care of them. You know what I mean? Like people probably don't want anything to do with them, which would make
Well,
them
they-
feel like
they even
nobody is there.
showed. They even showed in that one scene, which there was more reasons behind it, and when the cops blew him off, but the cops really didn't want to have anything to do with them either.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
once
they didn't want to have anything to do with them once they figured out who was in the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they also, though, even going for it, they're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
They weren't really looking for them. They weren't looking out for them. They were
Right.
just like, oh, more urchins.
I mean, it's again. I think like 2019. It's the bell that I keep ringing this year, but like there's never been a greater depth of genre films with like a more voices being heard. Right, like 20 years ago, we never would have seen, a movie. Well, unless it was like a Del Toro movie, but you know what I mean, like a movie about Mexican orphans in a drug war that's also a genre film. I just think it's a really cool time that something like this like has a space to exist.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. And then it's getting such a positive
Yeah.
like feedback too. Like,
But
you know,
obviously, like you super gotta
suck it, Trump. You know.
obviously, you super gotta know what you're getting into. But
Yeah. Very much.
was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about?
I mean, we didn't really talk about the creatures in this, and I thought like what little we got of those, like the design was awesome. Like, and I think that's why I kind of wanted more. Like, especially when we see more of like I don't want to refer to it as like a witch, but like that's what I kept thinking of it as. Like, I thought that was like really well done.
I loved when the tiger like hops into the
Oh, it's great.
into the
Yeah.
air vent, and it's just like, it's just like hucking its leg up over the side. Like I was like, oh my god, this is so
Mhm.
weird, and I love it.
Yeah.
My favorite image in the entire movie was like, there's a scene where, so after they're running away, they have to leave their rooftop home and they take up in what looks like an abandoned mansion or like an abandoned hotel or something. And there's a scene where they're kind of hatching their final plan, and they're in a room with like a big, beautiful like round window with a cityscape out front. There's grass growing up over the window because the window's all blown out. And I was like, this literally looks like if you took these kids out and put puppets in, this is the Dark Crystal. And like I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
like I don't know, that image is like burned in my head, and it's like she really excels at creating that kind of fantasy imagery in this really bleak setting.
Yeah.
It's probably like when the rest of this movie fades from my addled brain, I'm probably gonna remember like that image and the tiger hopping into the air vent.
Yeah. Little
I
tiger.
love this is not even like a scene in and of itself, but I love in the very, very beginning when we're introduced to the little boys that are all hiding together. It very much gave me this movie gives me like Peter Pan vibes. Like they're all the lost boys, and
A little bit.
they just that's why to begin with they don't want anything to do with Estrella. But Moro, so there's a little boy Moro who has the toy tiger and he doesn't speak. And they allude to the fact that like he saw something horrible and he hasn't spoken since, but they don't know what it was, and they, he when they're living on the roof of that building, he sleeps in like a hollowed out television that's got some Christmas lights rigged up inside
Oh
of it,
man, yeah.
which I just think is like such a cool visual. And like there's that scene where Shina is just telling them all scary stories, and he's kind of like hiding in
Yeah.
his little, when TVs were giant like
Yeah.
pieces of furniture, he's just inside of it.
This is gonna
Yeah.
sound weird,
Oh,
but
all right.
the group dynamic of the kids gave me like vibes of The Land Before Time.
Oh, for sure.
Like, cause literally they're just a bunch of orphans, right? Who are like trying to survive, and they're also fighting, and they don't really get along, and they're just trying to figure their way. By the way,
In the beginning, they're not orphans, right? They're trying to get back to their parents.
oh
They've
no!
like gotten.
In the beginning, we see one of their mothers straight up murdered by a T-Rex. So
Oh God.
Wait, really? I haven't watched that one in a
Littlefoot
long
still
time.
has
No.
parents in the first one. I'm so positive.
honestly, The Land Before Time might be more bleak than this movie. It's one of the darkest kids movies you'll ever see.
But it has less ghosts.
I think that the mom.
There's gotta
speaks-
be a
I think the
dinosaur
mom
ghost
like
in this.
whispers to him in the wind.
But she doesn't whisper out of like a ramen noodle cup, which I
Yeah.
really liked.
Yeah.
Oof,
Oh, that
that
was
just
cool.
made me want ramen noodles.
That was really cool, and that's like I totally forgot about that scene, but I think it's another testament to the way that she is really making you kind of feel the environment, and like she's having the because like right like uh in a waspy horror movie, the horror is expressed through like the picture frames in your suburban home, but in this movie it's literally like garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know what
it
I
was
mean?
really cool, that kind of hand coming out of the noodle
I thought
cup
that
there.
I'm glad you like brought that up because I had forgotten it, and I thought that was like a
Yeah.
really unique little scene.
I
Oh
really
shit!
kind of. I was gonna say I really enjoyed the kind of conflict that started to rise up between Shine and Estrella as they went on, and even though she wasn't fighting for power, how the group started to change on how they looked at the two of them,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
following more behind Estrella and not putting up with Shine's bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
Fucking shine.
When we talk about cool visuals in this, I think we really have to also just really quickly name check at the very beginning when the movie starts in a classroom and they're working on writing their own fairy tales, and then there's a shooting outside and all the kids hit the floor and the teacher is on the floor with them and everyone's crying, and then classes are suspended because of the violence and everyone gets sent home. And there's this scene where Estrella is walking outside and there are just kids like playing jump rope with some extra crime scene tape, and there's just a body laying on the street
Oof, yeah.
with like a rug over top of it. And I think that's a that's the thing about this movie is I think there are so many scenes that if the movie were not populated primarily by kids, they would feel too forced.
Yeah.
But because the movie is populated primarily by kids, they feel believable, but they also just feel like a kick in the stomach. Like that scene of the violence has become so normalized that kids can
Yeah.
just like play right next to a dead body and they don't even
Yeah.
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
And the movie just kind of passes by it quickly. They don't sit on it for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
But geez.
Yeah.
Joe, wasn't Shine the name of that rapper that sounded like Biggie?
Shine. I know he was a rapper. I couldn't tell you like
I'm pretty
what.
sure that was his thing. Was like he sounded like Biggie, and that was the only reason why he was big. Is like Puffy started working with him, and then
Mm.
he got arrested. Well, I think he was arrested in that. Wasn't he the one charged in the whole Diddy nightclub thing? Come on,
I
Joe.
am gonna look
I-
this up. Or...
I didn't expect to have to explain it. I figured you'd bust out a bunch of bars, but I guess not.
No, I have no idea. I don't even see him on
Shine,
Spotify.
right? Maybe that wasn't his name.
I don't think so.
I swear.
Well, whatever. I
dude.
could be wrong.
I swear.
Hmm.
I swear.
You kind of killed the conversation there.
Is it
right?
Shine?
One
Is
final plug
is
because
it-
I know we're
yeah.
wrapping up.
Okay,
But
wait,
if
wait,
you
hold on.
enjoyed this movie, I would highly recommend. Issa Lopez was one of the first guests when Switchblade Sisters podcast started. And she and April Wolf discuss Pan's Labyrinth. So
Oh.
it is not by accident that this movie feels like a Guillermo del Toro
Oh.
movie. He's a huge influence and idol of hers.
Of course. Yeah.
So that episode is amazing, and I would recommend listening to it whether you watch the movie or not. And secondly, just keep your eyes peeled because the title is not announced, but she and Guillermo del Toro are working on an untitled werewolf western project.
Yeah, we mentioned
yeah.
that before the show started. It's neat. Like I think that it's neat. It makes me feel old, but it's also neat to think of like a new generation of filmmakers like directly influenced by Del Toro because
Oh yeah.
he started out as like this kind of niche genre filmmaker, right? Like his first U.S. movie was a Mimic sequel, or was it the original? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was the original.
But like, he's really, I mean, especially after The Shape of Water, the dude's like a legend at this point. So it's neat to see, you know, Mexican filmmakers trying to kind of make their own way and following in his steps. It's kind of it's a cool thing to have been alive long enough to kind of see come together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it too. That like in that aspect that with Issa, the way she made this movie, obviously wearing her Del Toro influences and love on her sleeve for this movie. But to me, it didn't. It felt like it was still her own thing and not necessarily like a hack job or second rate.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm like the one person in the world that didn't like The Devil's Backbone. So for actually like most of the same exact reasons that I didn't like this thing, it was just like too bleak, not enough like horror for me. But
I do remember the Shine song now, just to jump back into that. It's Shyne. And yeah, he was the one that was convicted of attempted murder with Sean Puffy Combs in the nightclub with Jennifer Lopez, and went to jail for 9 years.
He took the fall.
Wowzers.
9 years. Oh my.
9 years, and then he was deported, and he's currently living in Jerusalem.
Oh my.
Wait,
God.
what is
Oh
the
my.
story here? Who got murdered?
No one got murdered, but I guess he got into like an altercation at a nightclub in Manhattan, and
It was the thing
shots
that
were
like
fired.
they thought Puff Daddy was gonna go to jail because he was Puff Daddy at the time. That he was gonna go to jail for it, and then basically this dude took the fall. So that's what you get for hanging out with P Diddy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Puffy was brought
Wow.
up on charges too, and Puffy was acquitted, and Shine was not, unfortunately.
9 years and deported. Damn, dude.
Yeah.
That was talk about bleak.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Jeez.
And this was when his song came out. You remember probably the song "Bad Boys." If you go and listen to it,
Okay.
you'll remember it.
Immediately
But
after the show, I'm going to do it.
his album had not come out yet, and like the whole thing was like he was like Puffy's next big thing, and like he was gonna blow up. And before his album came out, he was sent to prison. And the album came out, like it did okay, like it didn't, but obviously you never put anything else out
If
because of this whole
you
thing.
had said to me, guess where in the world Shine is today, I think Jerusalem would be the last guess that I would get.
Well, he tried to get into the UK and was denied entry.
Woof.
Man.
Whoops.
You might say he was about to puff up.
Mm,
Wow. Maybe?
Guys, I'm not working on all cylinders right now, you know?
well,
I'm doing my best.
All right,
We'll
guys.
I'm drinking out of a rubber wine glass, okay?
yeah,
That's
we-
where we're at.
That's going
We
to do
don't have
it.
to shine a light on your issues.
That's going to do it for Tigers Are Not Afraid. Do you recommend this
That's
movie?
how it's done, Sophie.
Do you recommend this movie, Joe?
I will say yes, but I will wait till like spring or at least after like the winter months because I don't think this is going to be any less depressing then.
Sophie.
I mean, this was my number one movie of 2018, I think.
Well, it's in consideration for this year because this is the first time it's been
I
wide.
know. So I have to actually ask Joe or John if I'm allowed to put it on 2 years in a row because
Oh, sure.
I don't want to hurt its chances if everybody else likes
Well,
it
it's
this
gonna
year.
it's
Anyway,
it's gonna be on the ballot, so you can do it.
I would highly recommend this movie. I think it's beautiful. I think maybe wait until spooky season's over. Maybe shoot until like November, December.
Yeah.
But I saw this movie in January, and like coming out of this into a world that was already dark by 4 p.m. was kind of the perfect mood for this movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I'd recommend that, and it's
No,
free
thank
on
you.
Shudder, so you
Yeah.
have no excuse, honestly.
100%. Casey.
I would recommend it, but by God, make sure you're taking your
Yeah,
antidepressants.
I will say, yeah, if you have Shudder, it's better than the Creepshow thing. So there you go. I would,
Yeah.
I would give this a thumbs up too. Again, I think just kind of know what you're getting into, but it's definitely a really interesting movie. All right, guys, we got a bunch of fan mail, so let's take a quick break and get to that.
He jumped. I was like, it's okay, honey. You'll be all right. Actually, just on the edge the whole time. Being able to scream in the theater is fun.
The best scary movie since The Sixth Sense. You'll have a spooky good time.
You're the scariest movie I've ever seen.
The Ring, rated PG-13. Now playing.
I'm Ray Wise from Twin Peaks, and you are listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
Welcome back to the show. Here to do some fan mail. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. Joe, I missed a bunch of emails last week from our attendees of BGH Spooktoberfest. Sophie, do you want to talk about our karaoke duet?
Oh man, highlight of the night.
For some
So-
reason, I got it into my head like I have to sing "Picture" by Kid Rock and Sheryl Crow with somebody, and there was Sophie. She's ready to go.
I wouldn't say I was ready to go. I think I repeatedly said I didn't want to, and then eventually I was like, okay, fine, I will, but I don't want to talk to you about it because I'm so stressed out. And then Eric was like stage momming me for a good 45 minutes beforehand, where he was like, you have to sing, and also you need to bring it, and you need to act, and also, and I was like, Eric, if you don't leave, I'm going to vomit. I'm so stressed out.
That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure.
It was a lot of energy that I was not prepared
You
for.
had already slayed that Lizzo song, though, so I feel like you were that was nothing compared to this, right?
I mean, well, again, when I sang Lizzo, I was singing with another person. You and I were never singing at the same time. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. That's not true. There was a chorus part, but anyway, I thought.
Good God.
I think Joe.
Anyway.
I think Joe's everywhere would agree that we killed it.
Yeah.
I woke up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and Andrew Roebuck, our dear Andrew Roebuck, had sent me the music video for that song at like 7 a.m. because he's a monster.
It's a great song.
I had forgotten it existed, so I guess thank you for reminding me.
Apparently I didn't, because I needed no prompting to be like, that's the song that needs to be sung right now.
Yeah. Eric really, like, I don't know if you planned on doing karaoke before the event, Eric, but like you're kind of like that guy that doesn't want to go to a strip club and then gets 2 beers on him and is like, I need to see some boobs right now. Like, you were just like all about it the moment that you got in your head you were going to do it.
Once we did Limp Bizkit, I was like, I feel alive.
It was, yeah, it really set the mood.
Yeah, for sure.
What was the bummer was like on the way back, like I still today like even had like a song on my head, like, oh man, I wish I had done this song. Like I've got, yeah.
Last week.
Well, you gotta wait till the next one.
Last week, Tuesday morning, going to work because I had taken Monday off because I'm smart. I was rocking, like I just got my voice back, and I put on that Limp Bizkit album and lost my voice by the time I got to work.
It took me like I want to say 5 or 6 days before my voice was back to normal.
Yeah, it's great, good times. All right, guys, we're just bang through these here. Actually, first up, we got some regular emails. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. First off, Caitlin with a question. Do you guys ever go to a store or a gas station that has 5 to 6 people in it and think, if shit goes down, this is my horror movie team? Are there any situations, places, or things that make you think, what would I do if horror movie ensues? Usually driving through empty states in the middle of the night, I imagine seeing a Bigfoot or alien and think, what's my plan A, and will people believe me? Thanks. This exact thought actually gives me a lot of anxiety, like when I'm in big cities. And it's actually more just about like regular disasters, because I feel like those are the worst places to be when that shit happens.
I never think about this. Like, this never crosses my mind.
I've had some good daydreams, usually around work.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm the villain, sometimes I'm the hero. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh, Jesus, Casey. All right. Let's, next email.
I will say that I think about The Mist every time I'm stuck in a long line at the grocery store.
Oh, Lord. I was just going to say that, like, if you're a person with anxiety, you enter every situation being like, okay, if the worst case scenario happens, what are you going to do?
How badly am I going to die here?
I think a lot about, like, what would I do if my son was at home, lying on the floor because he's hungry, and the only way to feed him is to dance for him for a little bit of money, and his dad is gone?
I don't think that's what they say, Joe.
I totally lost my train. I screwed the whole thing up. Let's just move on.
Because to me, this is just real life. Oh, okay. Next up, this is from Paul. I'm gonna skip through some of this, but he says,
Think in my head now.
Hey guys and gals, I was on a couple road trips and caught up with a few episodes. What a great way to make the drive time fly by. I was wondering if you guys have any thoughts on the ending. Oh, that's a spoiler. I'm not gonna read that. I was also glad that Eric really liked It Chapter 2. Usually he and I have pretty different views on movies, but was glad he went to bat for it. Machete has pretty much confirmed that he is working on The Flash for DC. What are all your thoughts on that? I thought Wan and Sandberg killed it with their DC movies.
Wait, what?
Well, it's the guy who did It Chapter 2 is going to do a big budget Flash movie for DC.
I thought that the email meant you were going to do a Flash movie for DC, and I was confused.
No. You know Joe the Flash? You familiar? So he's
the guy who runs fast?
Yeah, he's going to have his own movie. I don't really care about any of the DC characters, really.
Fun.
So it's not my jam, but I think the person who directed It Chapter 2 is a brilliant genius. So obviously it's going to be very good. Don't at me. I hope you guys review The Joker. It's getting good to mixed reviews, so it should make for some great movie conversation. I haven't seen it, but I would assume it has somebody dressed as a clown possibly killing people. Also, his name is Arthur Fleck, Art the Clown. Bet you didn't know Joker is a Terrifier prequel. Let the possibilities roam. Keep up the great work.
Man, I have zero desire to see that movie. Like even on
Same.
video, like it
I
just.
kind of want to see it. I don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for it.
No.
I don't. There's a lot that puts me off about it, but like the trailer's really good. Like I'm a great appreciator of the art of movie trailers, and that's a friggin' really good trailer.
Well, if that's the
Yeah.
case, then just go ahead and see Hustlers instead of the Joker.
Hustlers looks
That
pretty
I
good,
want to
yeah.
see,
Oh shit, it's good. It's
and
good.
not even like for the obvious reasons. Like I've heard it's like actually like a legitimate great movie.
It is delightful. TNA aside, it's really good.
Well, aside, why would you put it aside?
Because Joe said aside from the obvious reasons.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
J-Lo up there dancing, doing her thing.
I know.
Wow.
Joe,
Okay,
Joe,
let's move on.
Joe, that's right in
Yep.
your wheelhouse, Joe.
Joe, there is a line in the movie where J Lo says, "Get climb in my fur." She's
Oh,
holding her
dude.
giant fur coat. So I just I want you to prepare yourself emotionally for when that happens.
All right, guys. Next up is Ben. Hey guys, Ben here, aka Genre Syntax. So that's his name on Slack. If you happen to be on Slack. Just wanted to write in and say how much I loved Spooktoberfest. As a huge horror fan living in a relatively small city, it's pretty rare that I can hang out with a bunch of folks who not only want to participate in a horror movie trivia, but will also take it super seriously. I lost pretty spectacularly, but it was more than worth the price of admission. On a sappier note, I just want to say how amazing the BGH crew was in person. I'm an introvert by nature, so socializing with a bunch of people I've only sort of talked to online via Slack was never going to be easy for me, but the BGH crew, Schnars and Eric in particular, went out of their way to make me feel welcome. Eric even hugged me. I'm not a hugger under normal circumstances, but this time it just felt right. Does that sound weird? Probably a little. It is what it is. Anyway, thanks so much for all the opportunity to meet you all, and if you keep doing these sorts of events, I will keep showing up, especially if you have karaoke. Thanks, Ben. Thank you, Ben. for
Okay,
letting me know.
wait, pause. Since I happened to be on the episode where you read that, can I blow up his spot a little bit?
Absolutely.
Depends.
So Ben is a grade school friend of one of my very good friends from Chicago.
Oh.
So when I had my birthday party in Florida, which our mutual friend Ryan went to, I was very, very drunk because it was my birthday, and I was at the beach with all my friends. And my friend Ryan calls me over and he goes, "Hey, a friend of mine from grade school just texted me to ask how I know you, and said that you're on his favorite podcast, and it is as though he feels like I'm meeting a celebrity right now."
That's awesome.
Aw.
Go you.
So that's how I got to spend my birthday. So thank you, Ben, for
Very
being
nice.
fantastic. And I did get to meet him at the Spooktoberfest, and he's very nice.
And I'm sure I hugged him because there were lots of hugs happening. I'm a hugger.
Too many.
Mark wasn't there, so I felt like I had to make up for it.
I'll be the one to go out there and say too. Ben's got the voice of an angel.
Oh, that
Yes.
was Ben?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he sounded
Okay.
amazing. That's true. I
Agreed.
forgot what he sang, but I remember being like, "Do you guys hear that?" It's
He did
incredible.
a Billy Joel song, right?
Oh, shit,
Yeah,
I
and he
missed
did a
that.
Clapton song too.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So thanks, man. It was cool meeting you.
We love you, Ben.
Next up, somebody else we met, Dustin. Hey, BGH crew, what an amazing weekend. I'm sure this isn't a totally unique story, but I came up from Indy by myself, not knowing exactly what to expect. I'm definitely comfortable with people, but I'd consider myself mostly an introvert. I was a little anxious, but I was pleasantly surprised. From the fellow listeners to those who run the show, everyone was welcoming, friendly, and just flat out awesome. From the amazing trivia to karaoke, which I never thought I'd do, to dining, drinking, and dancing with everyone, I couldn't have predicted how great of a time this weekend would be. Thanks for everything, and I look forward to the next get-together. Much love. I see Dustin's really cool. I spent a lot of time talking to him Friday night at the Patreon meetup.
I think I know I'm 99% sure I've met Dustin at Horror Hound too or someplace else, and I'm
Okay,
sure we
cool.
have. But yeah, he's a super cool guy.
Next up, Joe, your friend and mine, Jamie.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Jane-
she seems nice.
Jamie says, just wanted to shoot you an email saying how much fun the weekend was. Thanks for all you did to make it happen. I fully admit that Matt and I, so Matt is Emerald, her husband, who also came out, and we met for the first time, probably wouldn't have come out if it wasn't so convenient for us, mainly because convincing him to meet a bunch of strangers would have been impossible. I was down almost immediately, but I'm so happy it was convenient because I can say with confidence we would travel to the next one. I have crazy anxiety, so I showed up practically shaking from nerves, but everyone was so amazing and friendly. You've brought together a quality fan base of awesome people. It's truly impressive that you made such an impact on people that they traveled from all over, some by themselves. More power to those people. Just to spend 2 nights with you guys and the community you've created. Keep up the great work, Jamie. P.S. Thanks for making shirts in my size.
Oh.
Listen, Jamie, I always make sure they make shirts for short people. So here.
I was able to give Jamie our last Candyman versus Brock Lesnar T-shirt because she
wow.
is probably the only horror fan we'll ever meet who can take an extra small.
A keepsake.
Amazing.
You know what's really
Yeah.
cool? Like a theme for me that stuck out is like I think a lot of us probably identify as like introverts at least on some level, and I think like a lot of people, especially people that might have traveled by themselves, have spoken either at the event or since with us about feeling a lot of anxiety and feeling like not that they couldn't do it, but just like having a lot of fear about it. And it's like everybody I talked to seemed so at ease. Even the people who maybe in their heads felt like I'm losing it right now, I can't handle this. Like everybody was great. You guys were all awesome, and I think everybody should be like proud of themselves for putting themselves out there and so they can so they can be a part of it. I just want people to know that like even if like I don't think we felt anybody was like weird or awkward or anything. Like it was just like all love all weekend, and it was really cool getting to meet like so many different people from different walks of life. Give yourselves a pat on the back, Bloody Good Horror fans. I think we have one more. Chase, your friend Chase, Joe. I just want to say thank you for putting on a great event this weekend and for building such a great community. I was blown away by how nice everyone was, both the BGH members and fans. I think the positivity and supportiveness of the listeners is a reflection of what a great bunch of folks you all are and the show itself. Anyway, I had a great time making friends, drinking exactly the right amount, and arguable, and encouraging Schnars to sing Merle Haggard. I'm looking forward to the next get-together and hoping it's not far off. Thanks for the good time, Chase. I like Chase because he's got like a little bit of a crazy look in his eyes sometimes. And I like that about him. He's a wild card.
Chase is a great sport because he followed a bunch of us to a club and just like took a nap near where we were dancing for a little while. But we had his back. We were like, if you need to sleep, we can just watch you.
I can't believe you guys did that. Oh, were you part of the group of nut jobs that was out till 4 a.m. on Saturday?
Yeah.
Sophie, we were at that bar for like 10 hours, and then you guys went somewhere else.
Yeah. Sometimes, listen, that I'm also part of the group of nut jobs who, when we left Miller's on Friday night, I was like, we're going to need to go to the boiler room and get a PBJ, which is $7 for a shot of Jameson, a tall boy of PBR, and a slice of pizza.
This is why I actively try to take control of my own bedtime in these situations.
This is why Eric does not hang out with me after 10. Eric's like a gremlin.
But you know me though, so it's like it's just like
yeah. I don't even try to fight you when you're like it's time for me to go. I'm just like okay, I'll see you later.
I mean, honestly, my favorite thing was like I didn't get any. I think I stayed out and hanged later than people probably expected. So it wasn't like I was like 10 o'clock. All right, guys, time to go. But I like that like neither time that I said, hey guys, I think we should go, was there any pushback from anyone. It was just like, let's do it.
All the BGH dads were ready to sleep, and I respect that.
Yeah, I think we all had it in our heads. Eric was the one that just kind of pulled the trigger.
I felt bad leaving Saturday because the party was still bumping too. I mean, but it definitely had a feeling of like, this is about to turn, you guys. We should go.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. Once you guys left, and then the big group of us that went to the Owl left not long after you, and around that same time, people that were not part of our group came in and started doing karaoke, so it really like busted up after that pretty fast.
Yeah.
Well, we were the life of the party. Hey, Joe.
That's true. I don't know why you'd want to stay otherwise.
Joe, what's on Twitter?
We got a lot because we're 2 weeks out, so I may apologies if I skip over yours, but just know it wasn't good enough to make the show. We used 2 hashtags. First one, BGH Classics, which I hate to say it, but we'll be retiring fairly soon. But we got a few left, and we'll get through them. First up from our good friend Whitney, and that is We Pib Nibbles. I'm sure it's something clever, but I don't know how to say your Twitter handle. And this is from episode 44, The Brood. So I'm watching Rec last Friday. Girlfriend was out of town. Turned the lights down low. Bow chicka wow wow. And that was Eric.
What year was that, or what episode?
Episode 44, The Brood. So that's a while back.
I was probably still in Florida.
Yeah.
Can we make Can we make one of the benefits that you get of being a patron that like you can send us how to pronounce your Twitter handle so that Joe and John will pronounce it correctly?
What's the fun in that?
Joe will never
there's no-
pronounce it correctly out of spite.
Yeah, there's absolutely no promise that'll ever happen. That baseball Joe, that one I got, it's right there. He looks like he got into some sort of Rob Zombie Cenobite acid. And that's Eric BGH talking about his good friend Uncle Traveling Matt on episode 491, Mandy. Another one from that baseball Joe. I don't know if this thing is on because I don't hear you guys laughing. Is there like a weird delay or something? Episode 505, Lawnmower Man. That was me. Another one from our good friend Whitney. If your cousin's really hot and you're in love, then go to town, I say. And that, of course, was John because he loves love. Episode 45. Top 5 most disturbing moments.
Consenting adults. It turns out we created a top 6 most disturbing moment.
Yep. Our good friend Adam, Space Lawyer. I assume attorney at Space. Mark, I know Freddy is going to have a webcam kill that I am dreading. And Eric replies, "Welcome to Web 2.0, bitch." Episode 109, The Crazies.
Do you remember Web 2.0, Joe?
Web 2.0, I like to
Speaking
call
of things
it.
that date us.
Yeah. And then 2 quick ones from our good friend Skizbot. You get there and you don't know what you're going to find inside, so they're almost like a box of chocolates. That's Eric, episode 294, The Sacrament. And then also from The Sacrament, you gotta have someone to plow the fields while you're banging all the grandmothers. That was Eric as well. I would like to know the context of that one.
What's the movie?
Eric planning his cult.
What's the movie?
The Sacrament.
The Sacrament was the one that was like it was like Jonestown. It was
yep.
Yeah, and
Ty
that
West
one
movie.
dude was just banging everybody. Yeah, that movie's great.
The John Goodman look-alike.
Little spoiler, Joe. That's gonna be in my top 25 of the decade.
Oh, well, there you go.
Is it really?
Yeah. Don't give me that face. Take that face back. Joe, can you bust out my top 10 for this year, actually, while Sophie continues to make that face I told her?
Yeah. Before that, what do you got? What do you want?
Do I have a full top 10 yet?
You have a top 9.
Perfect. Put Tigers at 10. It's probably not going to make it, but we'll put it there for now. I'll go back later. I'll reassess, okay?
Okay. All right. I'm going to bang through Ask
Sophie,
BGH, which is if you have a question or just need some life advice or anything before the show, we'll answer it. We got a lot, so I may skip over yours. We'll see what we can do in the next 10 minutes. Our good friend at Beard81Dad, that's Jason. Was anyone else scared of Mr. Boogedy as a kid? And
hello.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about that.
We were losing our shit on Slack because not only is Mr. Boogedy going to be on that new Disney service, but there was a sequel that I had never heard of that's going to be on there too.
Yeah, I don't know if the sequel's actually on there. I didn't see it on the list. But
this movie, so it's like a younger people wouldn't remember, but like in the 80s and 90s, Disney, who owns ABC, would periodically do these like Sunday night Disney movies, and they were like hosted by Michael Eisner. And it was like a big thing. I have like huge nostalgia for these like nights, but a lot of it were just kind of cheap like TV movies they would produce. Sometimes they'd show their big stuff, but a lot of times they were like, one-off specials made for TV. I think that's what this Mr. Boogedy thing was, but it was a story.
It was. I don't want to cut you off, but you told this exact same story in the last episode.
Oh well, why are we talking about it? Anyway,
for the sake of time,
it scared me as a kid, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna do it for the show once it's available.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you finish, but
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna head out.
No, I'm gonna try to not let you finish. All right, next
Joe,
up
you could have said that before I started going. Like,
well, I didn't. I didn't realize you were gonna like verbatim, word for word, gonna recite the exact same thing. I was almost impressed if we could like pull up last week's episode and try and like.
I bet you it syncs up.
Yeah. All right, a few more. Next up from Joe Whithouse. When Joe BGH was talking about 11-11-11 sequel on the Parasite episode, was he referring to 12-12-12 and 13-13-13? Was there a sequel?
Somebody did.
13's not a month.
I think he's making a joke, but no, I don't think I was talking about a sequel. I think we were talking about there was 2 separate movies.
Yeah, somebody did write us in to say that there was another 11, but it had a slightly different title though.
Yeah, it was like a weird knockoff. Like what is that production company that makes knockoffs that are so close they try to trick you?
The
Yeah,
Asylum.
yeah.
Asylum?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like one of those. I was listening to that episode in a hotel and I was yelling that Joe was right. So.
Yeah. Ask BGH for my good friend Whitney also. Did Joe perform his inverted nipple onion ring toss trick at the meetup? I did not. And in a world of cameras in the internet, I will never do that at
I was
a
gonna say,
BGH meetup.
Is that because do you think you can still do it?
Oh, I 100% can still do it. The
thing
the
is, you have
turkey's
to
not done. They haven't popped.
It's like a licensing thing with Sally Jesse, right?
That
Can't do it.
was a horrifying analogy, Joe. Thank you for that.
Chicken's still roasting
See,
her.
the problem
No.
the problem is you need a practiced onion ring thrower, or the act doesn't really work.
Yeah, well.
You gotta have a ringer, so to speak, to throw.
You know, it's funny. I got an email from our library's newsletter that they're now offering like digitizing services. Like you can bring in your old VHS tapes and stuff. And like for a second I thought about it, and then I realized like no, like
Wait, you have it?
What's that?
You have it on VHS?
I have it, but I have it on VHS, and I don't even have like a VCR.
You gotta preserve it. You don't have to show anybody, but you gotta preserve that tape is gonna break down.
But like I don't know like what the setup is at the library. Like, am I gonna be doing this in the middle of like the floor with like everybody watching me? Like,
there's services that'll do it for you. Just mail it out to them.
Or that one librarian's gonna give you.
They
that
definitely
weird look
won't
every
make a
time you walk
copy
in.
of
Yeah,
it.
Joe,
Yeah,
Joe,
exactly.
send it to me. I'll take care of you, buddy.
all right, we can see.
Isn't that how videos show up on Funniest Home Videos? Those
Yes.
online services.
Sometimes I'll be like, my sister has a photo. You all met my sister. So she and her best friend Karen, who are both stunningly beautiful, have a picture from a college party where they're both in like very fancy lingerie. And my sister wanted to get a big print of it for her friend. And when she went to get the print, she was like, "Where's the original?" And the guy's like, we lost it."
Yikes.
Oh my god.
Yikes.
It's like, oh Lord, but you didn't is the thing.
You know, because you weren't here last week, we didn't talk about your sister's friend with the hair that's so beautiful I couldn't even look at it. It was like
My sister wants him to cut his hair so bad. That's my sister's ex-boyfriend, by the way.
you guys introduced me to him, and I was like, "Hey, your hair is beautiful."
And I don't want to blow up your spot, but he's the one that said you were born to be a white rapper, not the DJ.
Oh, well,
Oh.
listen, I'll take the compliment from someone with hair like that. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Martin's got great hair, but don't let my sister hear you say that because she'll be so
Yeah.
upset.
I'll side with your sister. You gotta cut that fucking hair.
Joe,
time to
you
grow
were
up, Martin.
admiring it when we were there. Joe, don't give me that. We were all talking about it. It was a hot topic of conversation. It was incredible.
All right, next up, we got a lot. You guys need to stop talking. At Cody Yolo, what's a band or music artist you'd like to see face a horror icon?
I'd like to see Rob Zombie
Yeah.
get killed in a slasher.
Wouldn't be bad. Like I'm thinking
Rob
like the old like Scooby Doo, where like a band would be on the Scooby Doo episode. Like I could get into that.
Yeah. I would love it only because I have AC/DC on the brain this week. But if I could see AC/DC face up with just about anybody, but the lead singer has to only talk in his screaming voice the entire time, that'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All I can think of now that Joe brought it up is Smash Mouth showing up on Scooby Doo.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh,
That
why
would
has
be
that not
amazing.
happened yet?
I was
No.
just thinking of that South Park episode of The Corn from like 30 years ago.
All right, next up from Guillotine Sale. He says, as a dad, can you give an uncle a suggestion as to... Oh, asking this to me. Joe, as a dad, can you give me a suggestion to an uncle as to which beer would be a good starting point for a 6-year-old, hypothetically? I don't know. All these breweries are putting out like low carb options now, so I would go with one of those. Like, it's
Not White Claw?
Low carb? Why does the 6-year-old need low carbs?
that. It's just it seems like it's like a lighter. Like I had the Dogfish Head one, and I wasn't a huge fan, but it's like a muted beer, so it's still got the alcohol in it, but it's not as high.
Okay.
Like I think it's like
Hey.
did you ever hear about this near beer like in olden times where like they would pretty much make a batch of beer and then take the grain and make another batch, and
Yeah.
like that beer was a lot it wasn't
Except
as strong.
That
and they
was a
would give
long
that to
time
kids.
ago. This is 100% legal now. Do not give a 6-year-old beer is actually the answer that our lawyer Adam would have advised Joe to give if he were here.
Whatever. Next up from @Skizbot, tigers are not afraid, but I'm afraid of all sorts of shit. Public speaking, giant centipedes, the cold, endless void of the universe. What scares you?
The older I get, the more afraid I become of slipping and falling in the extreme cold and nobody finding me.
Snakes. I hate snakes. I'm fucking terrified of them.
Spiders.
I think my fear of sharks has probably been very well documented on various podcasts. So sharks, 100%, and heights.
You know, I can't let this question go by. Colleen would be mad at me if I didn't give the true answer. I'm fucking terrified of ostriches.
Oh.
What?
They scare the shit out of me. When we used to go to the Fort Wayne Zoo and they had a big walk like up on a platform, you could walk around this area. They had free roaming ostriches, and every time those fuckers would come up to the track and peck at my feet.
Oh,
fuck ostriches.
So wait, so Eric and Joe, you grew up on the East Coast. Did you ever go to the Six Flags where you could like drive through the safari?
Literally was about to say I was driving through there once and saw two ostriches going to town on each other.
I was gonna say if you put your hand on the window, the ostrich would like peck at your hand on the window, which is probably like Casey's worst nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing is,
and then they would fuck each other.
Yeah, no, I saw like it was doing like this dance swaying back and forth, and I'm like, I think those ostriches are gonna fuck. And then like it just went over and plopped down on the other one and went to town.
Joe, how old were you when this happened?
I was like driving. Like this was.
Oh, okay.
I used to live like 40 minutes from it, so we would go.
It was like 6-year-old Joe knew too much about the world.
Oh, but no, the other time, like Leslie and I were there and went through, and like literally you go around a corner and there's like a goddamn kangaroo orgy going on, like just. Literally everywhere, like you couldn't look in a direction without seeing kangaroos going at it. And like I look in the rearview mirror and there's like a family of 4 in the car behind us, and I'm like, what must those poor kids be thinking? Because literally like kangaroo dicks are like pencils, like they're just like sticking out, like looking for anything, like they move around.
Joe, weren't you just yelling? Joe,
Never mind.
Weren't you just yelling at us that we have a lot of Twitter things tonight? We got to keep moving.
Well, I mean, you know, fucking kangaroo.
Animal dicks are important, Eric.
Yeah. I'm skipping over a bunch, so apologies.
We might be able to get to him next week. So.
Yeah, we're not gonna. OG Addams Family or OG Munsters? Now I'm only talking about the original '60s show. None of the new crap. In my mind, this is a clear winner, but I'm gonna keep that to myself.
I got a hot take. I don't want either because they're way too old for me. I watch them both and I'm like, this is unwatchable.
I love the Munsters. Like
Munsters are pretty good.
No,
yeah,
I'm good. I do. I mean, you know, you got to give it up to that Addams Family theme, but that's about it.
All right, we're gonna do like 2 more here. Next up from Jay Goenan 91. What's your guilty pleasure music to listen to?
I think we've discussed it several times on this show already. It's Fred Durst.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider that guilty pleasure because that's.
I'm a little guilty about it, but less so the older I get. Like I think there was a period where I probably wouldn't have talked about it, but you, Joe, gave me the confidence to discuss it in the open.
I go through the same thing with Will Smith, actually. Like, I would have been embarrassed like 10 years ago, but I'm like, you know what? I love Will Smith. I love his acting. I love his music. Like, I'm all for it.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, like Linkin Park, I used to be embarrassed of. Like, I only like a few songs.
They've
like,
got
my
some-
running
they have
mix
some-
is pretty much nothing but guilty pleasures.
Linkin Park has some bangers. I'll go to bat for that.
Yeah. But I would never go see them. Like, I would probably go see like Limp Bizkit or Will Smith in concert. Like, I would never step foot in Linkin Park.
Seen Limp Bizkit in concert twice, actually.
Oh, I've seen them 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Of course, you have.
My daughter likes to make fun of me for how many times Katy Perry shows up on my Spotify status.
I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that I loved growing up in the '90s that is definitely not cool now. I'm not really ashamed of it, but definitely like would be seen as gauche, Joe.
Yeah. All right, last one from @FrankV1313. What is the best fall beer you always have multiple times during this season? Pumpkin is my go-to. Like, I always have to have one of those.
I mean, if you're in the Midwest, go ahead, Casey.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, I think it's Southern Tier's Warlock pumpkin mixed with the stout. Good stuff.
Ooh, that sounds really good. I mean, as a Delaware resident, or Delaware native, I should say Pumpkinhead, which I love. But my favorite pumpkin beer is Schlafly Pumpkin, which if you can get your hands on a 6-pack of that shit's real good.
Are you talking about Dogfish Head's pumpkin?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, that one too. I'm a big fan of. But they actually had that on tap at Spooktoberfest.
Yeah.
It's been fully 5 years since I've been able to drink a real beer, Joe. But I always like to pimp this one because at the time I got way into it. Is Red Hook makes a thing called Out of Your Gourd Pumpkin Porter, and what's really cool about it is like it's different from a lot of the pumpkin beers that you think of. It's like not very sweet, it's not very pumpkiny, but it's heavier in the spice, and it's got like a darker kind of malty kind of thing going on a little bit. I don't know. I can't really describe it.
Sounds
like
pretty
Joe, okay?
tasty.
But it's
Yeah.
very good. I like the Red Hook, the little weird bottles. I don't know. I don't even know if they make it anymore.
I think Red Hook might be out of business, Eric.
Really?
Yeah, they were bought out by.
Well, Eric stopped buying it, so they went out of business.
Yeah,
don't
they were
know.
bought out by Budweiser a long time ago, and I could have sworn
I could
maybe.
buy
I
it.
don't know. I could be wrong.
I could buy it right here online.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Maybe.
It's expensive,
Right.
but I could buy it. Anyway, it's good. Check it out. Yeah. Is that it, Joe?
That's it.
Bloody Good Horror. Did we discuss what we're doing next week? Somebody said the
Yes.
Joker. I don't know if we talked about doing the Joker. I think it like might be a video pickup for us, but we're not gonna do it in the theater this year.
It is, and right now, tentatively, we've got In the Tall Grass on Netflix scheduled up next, and that's the new one based off the story written by Stephen King and Joe Hill.
Oh, very cool. Love it. Yeah, I mean we're at the point of the year where we kind of have a list we're trying to get to. I mean, because it doesn't seem that far off, but in podcast terms, like we only have so many slots left to get stuff in before we've got to do our year-end and decade lists. So yeah, man.
When are you all watching One Cut of the Dead?
I don't know. I've heard mixed things about it.
Oh, I mean, it's phenomenal. You guys definitely need to watch that before you do your 10 years.
Yeah.
You're
It's definitely
smiling.
on the list.
You're
yeah.
smiling when you say that, though, so I don't know what to think of you.
No, it's on. Listen, as much as I fucking love Tigers Are Not Afraid, One Cut will be higher on my decade list than
Yeah.
Tigers.
Sophie gave it a 10. She wrote a review for the site.
It's fucking phenomenal. And if I can say this, if you guys do it for the show, just don't read anything about it. Go into it blind. That's the best way to watch it.
I read a review by Sophie.
Okay, well, other than that, don't read anything else.
So yeah, we're doing that next week. Hopefully not taking any breaks off here for a little while. Coming in hot, spooky season. We're going to be doing the BGH 5K in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
That's very exciting. All you got to do is run a 5K somewhere, send us in your results, and you can enter. I mean, not even entering. It's just it's a community event. You know what I mean? Are we giving out stuff to all the entrants, Joe? I know I'm sure you said this before.
We are, yeah. Yeah. I don't know what yet, but we are.
Love it. I love it. All right, guys. It's going to do it for Bloody Good Horror. Hope you enjoyed our show on Tigers Are Not Afraid. We'll talk to you next week.
Sophie, you should go first.
Okay, bye, guys.
All right, bye now.
Bye-bye.